I never thought a single phone call could shatter 20 years of carefully constructed family loyalty, but there I was, standing in my own country house, staring at the wreckage of what was supposed to be our family gathering. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd bought this place with my own money, my marketing salary funding every mortgage payment, every utility bill, every repair. Yet somehow, I'd become a stranger in my own home. My name is Megan, and at 32, I thought I'd figured out the delicate balance between career success and family obligations. I lived 5 hours away from my hometown, a distance that felt both necessary and burdensome. Necessary because it gave me the space to build my life, without constant family drama. Burdensome because every visit required careful planning, rearranging client meetings, and sacrificing weekend rest. When Mom called that Tuesday morning, her voice carried that familiar tone of sweet manipulation that I'd learned to recognize, but never quite resist. "Megan, honey, we're having a family gathering at the lake house this Saturday. Dad's been asking about you, and Sarah's bringing the kids. It would mean so much if you could make it." The lake house, my lake house. The property I'd purchased 3 years ago as an investment and sanctuary, only to watch my family treat it like their personal vacation rental. But every time I thought about setting boundaries, guilt would creep in. They were my family, after all. Blood is thicker than water, as Mom loved to remind me. "Mom, you know I have 3 major presentations this week," I said, already mentally, rearranging my schedule. "The Henderson account alone requires—" "Oh, sweetheart, you work too hard. Family should come first, don't you think? Besides, when was the last time we all got together?" The guilt trip was expertly deployed, as always. I could practically hear the disappointment dripping through the phone, the unspoken accusation that success had made me selfish, so I did what I always did. I caved. "Okay, Mom, Saturday it is. What time should I be there?" "Around noon would be perfect. We'll have lunch, the kids can swim, and we'll just enjoy being together. It'll be wonderful." I spent the rest of the week in overdrive, cramming 3 presentations into 4 days, staying late at the office, surviving on coffee and determination. My assistant, Jessica, watched me with concern as I rehearsed pitch after pitch. "You know you don't have to prove anything to anyone, right?" she said Friday evening as I packed up my laptop. "Your family should understand that your work is important too. If only it were that simple." In my family, success came with expectations. The more I earned, the more I was expected to give. The more independent I became, the more they seemed to need me. It was a dance I'd been performing for years, and I was getting tired of always leading. Friday night, I drove the 5 hours through winding country roads, my car loaded with groceries, for the weekend. I'd learned early that showing up empty-handed to family gatherings was social suicide, so I'd stopped at 3 different stores, buying ingredients for Mom's favorite potato salad, snacks for the kids, and a bottle of Dad's preferred whiskey. The lake house appeared through the trees like a postcard, its wraparound porch and large windows reflecting the setting sun on the water. I'd fallen in love with this place the moment I saw it, imagining quiet weekends, reading on the dock, hosting elegant dinner parties, maybe even writing the novel I'd always talked about but never started. Instead, it had become my family's weekend. Playground, a place where they could relax and enjoy themselves while I handled the bills and maintenance from afar. But seeing it now, peaceful and welcoming, I felt that familiar surge of pride. Whatever else happened, I'd built something beautiful here. I parked in the gravel driveway and grabbed my bags, noticing immediately that no other cars were present. Maybe I was early, though noon had come and gone an hour ago. Maybe they'd decided to carpool. I pulled out my key and approached the front door, already planning the afternoon in my head. The key wouldn't turn. I jiggled it, thinking maybe the lock was sticking, but something felt wrong. The mechanism seemed different, newer. Confused, I walked around to the back door, trying the spare key hidden under the painted rock by the garden. Same problem. That's when I noticed the windows weren't just reflecting sunlight, they were reflecting chaos. Peering through the glass, I could see overturned furniture, scattered papers, and what looked like party debris covering every surface. Solo cups dotted the coffee table I'd carefully selected from an antique shop in town. Pizza boxes were stacked on the dining room table where I'd imagined hosting Thanksgiving dinner. My beautiful hardwood floors, the ones I'd had refinished, just last spring, were covered in muddy footprints and what appeared to be spilled drinks. The white couch that had cost me 2 months' salary showed dark stains that made my stomach clench. I called Mom immediately, my hands shaking as I dialed. "Oh, Megan, how are you, honey?" "Mom, I'm at the lake house and something's wrong. The locks won't work, and the place looks like it's been destroyed." "Was there a break-in?" Silence stretched between us, the kind of pause that speaks louder than words. "Oh, that. Well, we had to change the date, sweetheart. The weather looked bad for Saturday, so we moved it to Thursday. We figured you'd understand. The world seemed to tilt slightly." "Moved it to Thursday? Mom, that was 2 days ago. Nobody told me." "Well, we just assumed. You're so busy with work and all. We didn't want to bother you." The casual cruelty of it hit me like a physical blow. They'd had the party without me, in my house, using my things, and somehow I was the one being unreasonable for expecting to be included. "And the house, Mom? Did you see what condition it's in?" Her tone shifted, becoming defensive. "Oh, Megan, don't be so dramatic. It's just a little messy. Ryan said he'd clean up, but you know how boys are. Dramatic." The word stung because it was her favorite weapon, deployed whenever I dared to express any emotion that inconvenienced her. Anger was dramatic. Hurt was dramatic. Setting boundaries was definitely dramatic. A little messy? "Mom, there are stains on furniture that cost me thousands of dollars. The floors look like a construction site. This isn't messy. This is destroyed." "Well, if you're going to be upset about every little thing, maybe lending us the house wasn't such a good idea after all." The conversation ended with her hanging up on me, leaving me standing in my own driveway, locked out of my own property, staring at the aftermath of a celebration I'd never been invited to. I sat on the porch steps, feeling the weight of years of accumulated resentment. This wasn't the first time I'd been excluded, but it was the first time the exclusion had been so blatant, so deliberately hurtful. I thought about all the family events I'd rearranged my life to attend, all the financial help I'd provided without question, all the times I'd bitten my tongue when I should have spoken up. Last Christmas, I'd paid for Dad's car repairs, $800 that I'd handed over without hesitation when he mentioned the mechanic's bill. 6 months ago, I'd loaned Ryan $2,000 for his emergency dental work, money I was still waiting to see returned. And just last month, I'd babysat Sarah's kids for an entire weekend when she wanted to go to a spa retreat with her friends. But when I needed them, where were they? When I'd had surgery last year, who had visited? When I'd gotten promoted to senior marketing director, who had called to congratulate me? The silence had been deafening, but I'd convinced myself it was because they were busy, because they had their own lives to manage. Now I realized the truth. I was useful to them when they needed something, but I wasn't important enough to include when they wanted to celebrate. I pulled out my phone and called a locksmith, explaining that I'd been locked out of my own property. While I waited, I walked around the house, documenting the damage through the windows. Each photo felt like evidence in a case I was finally ready to present. The locksmith, a kind man named Bob who recognized the address from previous service calls, shook his head as he worked on the front door. "Looks like somebody changed these locks recently," he said. "Nice work, actually. Professional job." Recently? How recently? I'd say within the last week or two. The hardware's new and the installation's clean. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. The implication hit me like a slap. They hadn't just excluded me from the party, they'd actively locked me out of my own house. This wasn't oversight or poor communication. This was deliberate. When Bob finished, I handed him my credit card and watched him drive away. Then I opened my own front door and stepped into the wreckage of my trust. The reality was worse than what I'd seen through the windows. The smell hit me first. Stale beer, old food, and something unidentifiable that made my nose wrinkle. The key. Living room looked like a fraternity house after a particularly wild night. My coffee table was scratched and sticky. The throw pillows I'd carefully selected were nowhere to be found. The area rug, a beautiful Persian piece I'd saved for months to buy, was rolled up in the corner, probably hiding permanent stains. The kitchen was a disaster zone. Every dish I owned seemed to be dirty, stacked in precarious towers beside a sink that overflowed with greasy water. The refrigerator door hung open, its contents scattered across the counter in various stages of decay. My good wine glasses, the ones I'd inherited from my grandmother, were gathered on the counter, some chipped, one completely shattered. But it was the bathroom that broke my heart. Someone had clearly been sick, and nobody had bothered to clean it up. The shower curtain was torn, and towels I'd never seen before were scattered across the floor. My medicine cabinet hung open, its contents rifled through like I was running a pharmacy. I took pictures of everything, methodically documenting each room, each stain, each broken item. With every click of my camera, my resolve hardened. This wasn't just about a messy house. This was about respect, about basic human decency, about the difference between family and exploitation. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Hope you're not too bummed about missing the party. We had such a great time. Ryan made his famous barbecue, and the kids loved the lake. Thanks for letting us use your place." The casual tone, the complete absence of acknowledgement that anything was wrong, the assumption that I should be grateful for being excluded from my own property. It was like pouring salt on an open wound. I typed back, "Actually, I'm here now. You might want to take a look at the photos I'm about to send." I created a group text with Mom, Dad, Ryan, and Sarah, then sent all 37 photos I'd taken. For good measure, I included a message. "This is what a little messy looks like. Apparently. I'm curious who's going to take responsibility for the damage to my property." The response was immediate and telling. Sarah sent a laughing emoji. Ryan wrote, "Come on, Meg, it's not that bad. We had fun." Dad didn't respond at all. And Mom sent 3 crying laughing emojis, followed by drama queen alert. I stared at my phone, feeling something fundamental shift inside me. This wasn't about cleanliness or property damage anymore. This was about recognition, about basic respect, about whether I mattered to these people at all beyond what I could provide for them. I opened Facebook, something I rarely did, and searched for Sarah's profile. There it was, posted 2 days ago, a photo of my living room filled with smiling family members I recognized and some I didn't. The caption read, "Amazing family gathering with the people who really matter. So grateful for good times and even better company. Family first. Blessed, good vibes, the people who really matter." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I wasn't in the photo, obviously, but more than that, I wasn't in their definition of family. I was the bank, the rental property, the convenient resource. But I wasn't people who mattered. I scrolled through the comments, seeing relatives and friends celebrating what looked like a wonderful time. Aunt Carol had written, "Looks like so much fun. Wish I could have made it." Several family friends had commented about missing the gathering. Everyone seemed to know about this party, except me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the guest bedroom of my own house, listening to the lake lap against the shore, thinking about all the ways I'd been slowly erased from my own family. It hadn't happened overnight. It had been a gradual process, like erosion. Each time I'd chosen work over a last-minute family event, each time I'd been unable to drop everything for someone else's crisis, each time I'd prioritized my own life, I'd been marked as less committed, less family-oriented, less important. But what about my commitment to them? What about the money I'd given, the time I'd sacrificed, the pieces of myself I'd offered up on the altar of family harmony? When did that stop counting? Sunday morning brought a new text from Mom. Megan, we need to talk about getting the house cleaned up. Your father has an important business dinner planned for next Saturday, and we really need to use the space. I know you're upset, but family comes first, and this could be a big opportunity for Dad's company. Can you have everything ready by Friday? I read the message 3 times, each reading making my blood pressure spike higher. They destroyed my house, excluded me from my own property, mocked my concerns, and now they wanted me to clean up their mess so they could do it all over again. For the first time in my adult life, I felt truly, completely done. I spent Sunday cleaning, but not for them. I cleaned for me, to reclaim my space, to restore order to my sanctuary. Every scrub, every sweep, every careful restoration felt like an act of rebellion. This was my house, bought with my money, maintained with my effort, and I was taking it back. Monday morning, I called a different locksmith company, one that specialized in high-security systems. By Tuesday afternoon, every lock on the property had been changed. The security system I deactivated months ago at Mom's request, it makes us feel like criminals, Megan, was reactivated with new codes. Motion sensors, window alarms, and most importantly, cameras with live feed capabilities that I could monitor from my phone. I also contacted my insurance company and lawyer, explaining the situation and ensuring that any future damage would be properly documented and legally actionable. If my family wanted to treat my property like a free-for-all, they'd have to face real consequences. Wednesday. I took a personal day and drove back to town, spending the afternoon at a spa, getting a massage and having a long lunch by myself. It felt like the first time in years I'd done something purely for my own enjoyment without calculating how it would affect everyone else's needs. Thursday evening, I positioned myself in my apartment with my laptop, a glass of wine, and the live feed from my lake house security cameras pulled up on my screen. The business dinner was scheduled for 6 o'clock Saturday evening, and I had a front row seat for the show. Friday passed quietly. Saturday afternoon, I watched cars begin to arrive at my property. Dad's car first, then Mom's, then several vehicles I didn't recognize. I could see people getting out, dressed nicely for what was clearly meant to be an important evening. Dad was gesturing enthusiastically to the other men, probably describing the beautiful lakefront view, the spacious deck, the elegant interior that would impress his potential business partners. They walked up to the front door with confidence, Dad presumably reaching for his keys. I watched him try the lock, jiggle the handle, try again. The group stood there for a moment, probably assuming user error. Mom tried her keys next, then Ryan, who'd apparently been given his own set at some point. Nothing. I could see the confusion turning to concern as Dad pulled out his phone. My phone rang 30 seconds later. Megan, what's going on? None of our keys are working. Oh, that's because I changed the locks. You what? Why would you do that? We have important guests here. Well, Dad, after finding out that you'd already changed the locks once to keep me out of my own house, I figured I'd return the favor. The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. Finally, Dad's voice came back, tighter and more controlled. Megan, this is not the time for games. I have potential investors here, and this dinner could secure funding. For a major expansion, you're being childish. Childish? I kept my voice level, watching the group of suited men shifting uncomfortably on my porch through the camera feed. Let me ask you something, Dad. When you changed my locks to exclude me from my own property, was that mature adult behavior? Didn't change your locks to exclude you. We changed them for security reasons. Security reasons? Security from what? Me? Mom's voice came through the background, shrill with panic. Megan, you're embarrassing your father in front of important people. Stop being selfish and just give us the code. And there it was, selfish. Another favorite family word for anyone who dared to prioritize their own needs, their own property, their own dignity. Mom, Dad, let me be crystal clear about something. This is my house. I bought it, I pay for it, I maintain it. And after last weekend's party that I wasn't invited to, followed by being expected to clean up the damage so you could host another event I wasn't invited to, I've decided that access to my property is a privilege, not a right. This is ridiculous. Dad's voice was rising, and I could see him gesturing angrily to the other men. You're sabotaging my business over some petty family squabble. Petty family squabble? Is that what you call deliberately excluding your daughter from family gatherings? Destroying her property and then demanding she clean up your messes? Because I call it emotional abuse and financial exploitation. I could hear Mom crying in the background, the performative tears she'd used to manipulate situations since I was a child. But for the first time, they didn't work on me. I felt nothing. Not guilt, not obligation, not the familiar rush to fix whatever was wrong. Just a calm, clear certainty that I was done being their victim. Look, I continued, if you want to have your business dinner, I hear the restaurant downtown has a nice private dining room, but my house is off limits until we have a serious conversation about respect, boundaries, and basic human decency. You can't do this to us. Mom's voice was getting hysterical. What will people think? They'll think exactly what they should think, that actions have consequences. Ryan's voice joined the chaos. Megan, if you don't open this door right now, I'm going to break it down. Ryan, I should mention that the property is now equipped with a full security system, including cameras that are recording everything. You're saying any attempt to damage my property will result in police involvement and criminal charges. The footage will make excellent evidence. The line went quiet, except for muffled conversation I couldn't make out. Through the camera, I could see the business associates looking increasingly uncomfortable, checking their watches, exchanging glances that suggested they were ready to leave. Finally, Dad came back on the line, his voice defeated. Fine, we'll go to the restaurant. But this conversation isn't over, Megan. Family doesn't treat family this way. You're absolutely right, Dad. Family doesn't treat family this way. I'm glad you're finally learning that lesson. I hung up and watched through the cameras as the group dispersed, the potential investors heading quickly to their cars while my family stood in my driveway, having what appeared to be a heated discussion. The business dinner was clearly off, and from their body language, Dad's big opportunity had just evaporated. Part of me felt terrible, but a larger part felt liberated. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing constantly with calls and texts from family members. The messages ranged from pleading to angry to manipulative. Mom wanted to know how I could do this to my own father. Sarah accused me of ruining the family. Ryan threatened everything from legal action to physical confrontation. But the message that finally broke my resolve to stay silent came from Mom's Facebook account. Heartbroken tonight. Some people let success go to their heads and forget where they came from. When your own daughter sabotages her father's business opportunities out of spite, you wonder where you went wrong as a parent. Praying for healing and forgiveness in our family. The post had 17 comments within the first hour, all from family friends and relatives expressing sympathy and shock. Aunt Carol wrote, "I'm so sorry, Linda. I can't believe Megan would do something like this." Another cousin added, "Success changes people, unfortunately. Hope she comes to her senses." I was being painted as the villain in my own story, the ungrateful daughter who'd turned her back on family for money and prestige. The narrative was being written without my voice, and I realized that staying silent would only cement their version of events. So I wrote my own post. I started with the photos from the previous weekend, all 37 of them, showing every room of my destroyed house. Then I added screenshots of the family text thread, including their mocking responses to my concerns. I included Sarah's Facebook post about people who really matter and the photo of them celebrating in my living room while I wasn't even told about the event. But the real kicker was the final screenshot, the text from Mom demanding that I clean up their mess for Dad's business dinner, treating me like hired help in my own home. My caption was simple: family is important to me, which is why I'm so hurt by recent events. I've never asked for thanks for the financial support I've provided over the years or for the use of my lake house, but I do expect basic respect and inclusion. When that's not possible, boundaries become necessary. I love my family, but I won't be treated as an ATM machine or cleaning service anymore. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within 2 hours, the post had been shared dozens of times and received over 100 comments. But what surprised me was the tone of most responses. They were supportive, not critical. Aunt Carol, who'd initially sympathized with Mom, commented, "Again, Megan, I had no idea you weren't told about the change in party date. That's completely unfair." My college roommate wrote, "I've watched you bend over backward for your family for years. It's about time you stood up for yourself." My coworker Jessica shared the post with her own comment. "This is why I respect Megan so much. She gives everything to the people she loves, and she deserves the same energy back." Even relatives I rarely spoke to began commenting with their own stories of family members who'd taken advantage of their generosity. It seemed I wasn't the only one who'd experienced this dynamic, but the comment that meant the most came from my cousin Michael, who'd always been the family rebel. "Megan, I've been waiting years for someone in this family to call out this behavior. You're not the problem here. You never were. Stand your ground." By Sunday evening, Mom's original post had been deleted, but the damage to their narrative was done. Too many people had seen the evidence, heard the other side of the story, understood the context they'd tried to hide. Mom tried calling me Sunday night, but I let it go to voicemail. Her message was predictable. "Megan, you've embarrassed this entire family with your public tantrum. Take down that post immediately and apologize to your father, or there will be consequences." Consequences. The threat that had controlled me for years, the fear of being cut off from the only family I'd ever known. But sitting in my quiet apartment, looking at the dozens of supportive messages from friends and extended family, I realized something important. Being cut off from people who didn't value me wasn't a loss. It was a freedom. I didn't take down the post. Instead, I blocked Mom, Dad, Ryan, and Sarah on all social media platforms and changed my phone number, giving the new one only to friends and extended family members who'd shown genuine support. The following week, I started therapy with Dr. Martinez, a counselor who specialized in family dynamics and boundary setting. Our first session was revelatory. "Megan," she said after I told her the whole story, "what you're describing is a classic pattern of emotional and financial abuse within families. The fact that you feel guilty for standing up for yourself shows how normalized this treatment has become." "But they're my family," I protested. "Blood is thicker than water." Actually, the full quote is, "The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb." It means that chosen relationships, the people who truly love and support you, are more important than biological connections. Real love doesn't come with conditions or exploitation. That perspective shift changed everything. I started to see my relationships more clearly, recognizing the difference between people who loved me and people who used me. Over the next few months, I threw myself into reclaiming my life. I visited the lake house every weekend, slowly transforming it from a family crash pad into my personal sanctuary. I bought new furniture to replace what had been damaged, hung artwork that reflected my taste rather than trying to please everyone, and finally adopted the golden retriever I'd always wanted, but avoided because it might be inconvenient for family visits. Lucy became my constant companion, and watching her explore the property with pure joy reminded me what it felt like to experience life without constantly calculating other people's needs and reactions. I also started dating again, something I'd put on hold during the years when every weekend was consumed by family obligations or crises. Mark, a fellow marketing professional I met at a conference, was everything my family wasn't. Supportive, respectful, interested in my thoughts and dreams rather than my bank account. When I told him about the lake house situation, he was appropriately outraged on my behalf. They locked you out of your own house and then expected you to clean up their mess for their next party? Megan, that's not family dysfunction. That's calculated abuse. His perspective, combined with Dr. Martinez's professional guidance and my growing circle of supportive friends, helped me understand that I hadn't overreacted. If anything, I'd underreacted for years. 6 months after the confrontation, Ryan tried to contact me through a mutual friend, claiming that Mom was depressed, and Dad's business was struggling without the contacts he'd lost from the failed dinner. The message was clear. This was somehow my fault, and I should feel guilty enough to come crawling back. Instead, I felt nothing but relief that I was no longer responsible for managing their emotional and financial crises. A year later, I heard, through Aunt Carol, that my parents were telling people I'd had a mental breakdown and that they were waiting for me to get the help I needed so we could be a family again. The revisionist history was typical. They'd convinced themselves that I was the problem, that my success had made me unstable, that my boundaries were symptoms of mental illness rather than healthy self-protection. But I was beyond caring about their narrative. I had my own story now, and it was a much better one. Standing on my dock 2 years later, watching Lucy chase ducks while Mark grilled dinner on the deck behind me, I felt something I'd never experienced before, complete peace with my choices. The lake house had become what I'd always imagined, a place of joy, rest, and connection with people who truly cared about me. I'd learned that family isn't determined by biology or obligation. Real family consists of people who celebrate your successes without resentment, support you during difficulties without keeping score, and treat your boundaries with respect rather than viewing them as obstacles to overcome. The people who truly mattered, my chosen family of friends, my supportive colleagues, my relationship with Mark, and even extended relatives like Aunt Carol who'd reached out to understand my perspective, had rallied around me when I finally stood up for myself. The people who'd abandoned me when I stopped being useful had revealed their true nature. Sometimes I wonder what might have happened if I'd set boundaries earlier, if I'd required respect from the beginning rather than accepting scraps of attention and affection. But I've learned that regret is just another form of self-punishment, and I've done enough of that for one lifetime. These days, when people ask about my family, I talk about Lucy, about Mark, about the friends who've become my chosen siblings, about the life I've built on my own terms. It's a smaller circle than what I once had, but it's filled with genuine love rather than conditional obligation. The lake house still stands as my sanctuary, but now it represents something different than when I first bought it. It's not just a beautiful property or a smart investment. It's a symbol of what becomes possible when you finally decide that your own well-being matters, that your own happiness is worth protecting, that love without respect isn't love at all. And on quiet evenings, when the sun sets over the water and Lucy snores contentedly at my feet, I'm grateful for every difficult moment that led me here. Because sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is the courage to walk away from people who take you for granted, even when they share your DNA, especially when they share your DNA. I am finally, completely, authentically free. And it turns out that freedom tastes even sweeter when you fought for it yourself.